just, yeah, don't count your chickens, count your blessings. And it was my mate that said to me, she was like, do you ever feel like we're just sort of playing at being adults? Because we're still incredibly immature. But I do think in some ways I'm actually a better person, to be honest, because I appreciate things a lot more than I used to do. I tell people how I feel about them a lot more.
Welcome to A Beginner's Guide to Being a Grown-Up, the podcast, my passion project to interview interesting people about their lives and let them tell us about the highs and lows and the things that they've learned. Today, we have Helen Rowell with us. Now, Helen has had a career across financial and professional services, but alongside her day job, she is also the founder and chair of trustees at the charity Brightest Stars. The charity was set up and founded in the memory of her husband, Mike, and provides vital support to children and families who are facing bereavement. And I'm sure we will get into that conversation and why you set it up during the conversation. Helen, thank you for joining us today and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this. This is an overdue catch up for you and me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we should just be doing it over a glass of wine and a cup of tea.
We should, but it's the middle of the working day for me.
Exactly.
So I'll refrain.
So I want to start with just understanding a little bit about your journey into adulthood and your younger life. So you can tell us a little bit about that journey into becoming an adult.
Well, it snuck up on me, to be honest, Sam. I was having this conversation. I'm 37, for full disclosure, and I was having this conversation with some of my school friends the other day, who are still like my best friends in the world. And we're all sort of, grown ups on paper now, right? Most of us own houses, have children, long-term relationships, whatever it is. And it was my mate that said to me, she was like, do you ever feel like we're just sort of playing at being adults? Because we're still incredibly immature. If we're in the car and someone lets off a ripper, we're all laughing at it in the car. Some of us still get a little bit too drunk and throw up. All of this stuff that we did when we were like teenagers, we're kind of still doing now. But then alongside it, we have all this grown-up stuff. So I'd love to tell you about my journey into adulthood, but it's very much snuck up on me, and I'm not sure I'm actually quite there yet, if I'm being completely honest with you. But I'm one of four children, so like really quick, busy, rapidly paced childhoods. I went to boarding school, and then straight off to university, and then straight into the world of finance where you and I met. So I'd love to pinpoint at which point I think I became grown up, but I couldn't tell you.
So tell me a little bit about your kind of your younger self, the things that were important to you, kind of how you picked where you went to uni.
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I think it's quite different now, and I think this is a good thing, by the way. But when I was at school, well, the school that I was at, it was very much a case of 99% of us went on to university,
Mm-hmm.
and then from there, it was quite clear. It was made very clear to me that you then went to work for either like a bank or a professional services firm or an accountancy. Um, so the choices that I made, although they were my choices, I think I felt like they were quite highly governed, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
by the people that were around me. And I don't include my family in that because I was the first of my family to go to university. But
Okay.
I think I was very much influenced by teachers who told me I was reasonably bright and had some potential. And then once I was at university, I was very much influenced by what my peers were doing around me.
Mm.
I'd love to know, if I had my time again and I know then what I know now, would I do it all the same?
Mm.
I'm not sure that I would. Um, but yeah, I feel like the choices that I made as I kind of segued into adulthood weren't necessarily my own.
Mm.
Yeah, they were definitely influenced by people around me, and I think these days there's a lot more emphasis placed on things like apprenticeships or
Mm.
going straight into the world of work. And actually, it doesn't matter if you don't go to this red brick university and get a degree in economics. Like, you can still do really, really well for yourself. And I think I'm really pleased that there's less emphasis placed on academics and more on like hard work and determination, because I'm a massive believer that hard work outdoes talent when talent can't be asked to work hard.
I love that. You're so right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Nothing will ever top good quality hard work, right?
I think so. And a good attitude as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think could have been another avenue for you if you'd not had that structure?
I always quite liked the idea of going into teaching. Um,
Okay.
but then I realised I don't really love children other than my own. But I did quite like the idea of teaching. I quite like the idea of something where I wasn't ironically sat at a desk all day as I sit here at a
Mm.
desk talking to you as part of my working day. I liked the idea of being with younger people who are at a point in their years where you can impart some wisdom on them and maybe influence their decisions, pull them off from what might be the wrong track, try and point
Mm.
them towards the right track. But yeah, it wasn't. It was as I say, as I got a little bit older and it came down to picking kind of A levels and choosing universities, I'd say I was steered away from that, to be honest, and more
Yeah.
towards like just go to this university and get this degree and then go off and go and do a grad scheme, and that's kind of what I did.
Mm. And then you shifted from financial services into professional services. So tell me a little bit about that kind of transition.
Yeah, so when I joined the bank that you and I worked at together, I say I'm like Britney Spears. I joined as a girl and I left as a woman. For all the Britney fans out there, they'll get the reference. So I joined at like
Going at age, Helen there.
yeah, I am, aren't I? I am. So I joined at 22. I was 35 when I left. So I honestly thought that they would carry me out of there in a coffin. I thought that I would be there forever. I will not have a bad word said against them. They're absolutely unbelievable employers. I had just the most amazing opportunities, colleagues, friends, and everything. But when my husband died in 2022, I was very grateful that I was given the time and space to kind of work out what I wanted to do. And then when it came to the decision of did I want to come back to the bank, I actually didn't want to come back. And I know everyone's really different, but I kind of felt like I just needed a bit of a clean break and I didn't want to go back to being, I didn't want to go back somewhere I was reasonably well known to be Mike's widow, basically. And I was very young. And I felt like everything was so out of my control at that point that I wanted something I could control and somewhere I could go and not carve out a new identity for myself, because that's not what I mean, but have a
Mm.
choice around how much I told people. And I think also at that point, it was the return to work era post COVID. And the bank wanted people in the office a lot more than I was realistically going to be able to do with
Mhm.
a 5 year old at the time. I don't live in central London. So I was very lucky to be given the opportunity to go and work with an ex colleague at a professional services firm. And that's where we are now.
Excellent. So obviously you've touched on losing Mike.
Yeah.
Um, can you know, tell us a little bit more about that experience? It's obviously a really defining experience. As you know, I lost my husband quite suddenly as well. So I know you and I have talked about it before about kind of what happened and how it felt.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of look back at the time before he died and I just think, are we allowed to swear? Do we swear on this
Oh, go
podcast?
for it.
I'm like, you fucking smug bitch. Like, it's like I was really fucking pleased with myself. Like, and I'm sure I wasn't, but I felt like everything was kind of as it should be. I'd met him when I was sort of 18, 19. We'd bought a house together. We got a cat. Rest in peace, Poppy. We and then we bought a bigger house, and then we had a baby, and that baby is now 7 years old. And don't get me wrong, there was bumps along the road, as there always are. The marriage was not perfect. I don't think I believe in that, and there was times where we had to work a little bit harder at it than other times. But we built this really great life together, and I was really pleased with how it went. And then, as you know, like this curveball just comes along, and I felt. The only way I can describe it was like I felt like this grenade had just been like
Mm.
thrown into my life. And, for the benefit of the listeners, he went away to France on a skiing trip and had a really awful accident and lost his life. So I wasn't even in same country as him when he died. I
Mm.
was at home with our son. He was obviously in France. And yeah, the experience is so life changing. It's really hard to articulate. And I don't think I'll ever be the same person ever again, but I do think in some ways I'm actually a better person, to be honest, because I appreciate things a lot more than I used to do. I tell people how I feel about them a lot more. I really like the mundane things in life that I probably took for granted. Like when someone makes me a cup of tea now, which doesn't happen very often, I could kiss them like right on the face. I think I'm a better, and I've gone on to set up the charity as well, which I never would have done otherwise.
Mm.
And hopefully, well, I know that's doing some good with other families that desperately need our support. So I'd never say I'm grateful for Mike's death, and I'd never say, I'm not a big believer in like you have to find a silver lining in everything,
Mm.
but I do think in some facets of my life it's made me a better person. But
Mm.
it's absolutely shit, and I don't think I'll ever get over it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get over it because he was and is and will be like this massive part of my life forever, as I'm sure, you kind of feel the same too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing, especially when it's a shock, when it's not a long term, but just something comes out of the blue. I think the thing for me, because I think I would agree, I think I'm probably a better person than I was beforehand, because I think we take stuff for granted,
Massively.
and you assume that they're always going to be there, that you're going to grow old together, and therefore day to day stuff isn't as important, like
Hmm.
someone making you a cup of tea, and then that just gets taken away, and it completely changes your attitude. I mean, my ability to deal with bullshit has plummeted. I'm like,
Yeah,
what
I
life
think
for?
I sometimes lack empathy a little bit now, I think, because sometimes someone will tell me they're having a really hard time, and then I'm kind of like, oh yeah, what's that hard time? And they'll tell me it's because like they forgot to take their car in for an MOT or something, and I'm like, fuck it, let me tell you about my life.
Yeah, gives you real perspective, doesn't it? It really
Yeah.
does. So tell me a little bit more about the charity and what made you start that charity. What was missing to support you?
Yeah, so yeah, when Mike died, I don't know if you were the same, Sam, but I was like so desperate to meet somebody who had been through or was going through what I was going through and was like, all right. Because in that moment,
Mm.
like I say, I felt like the world had been blown apart, and I couldn't ever imagine that I would get through even like a couple of hours without
Mm.
just like crying,
Yeah.
basically, and just feeling like everything was shit. Um, and I sort of like looked around in my local area. I live in Hampshire, and there was loads of groups where you could go and like sit in a circle and talk about how sad you are and maybe sing a round of Kumbaya, my lord, or whatever. But it's not really my vibe. I really wanted to just like talk to somebody about the reality of like, listen,
Mm.
how shit is it when your husband or your wife is dead and your kid throws up in the middle of the night and you've got no one to help you clear up the vomit? Like that's kind of like what I was there for. And then I think the other side of it was I was really aware my son Alfie, he was just 4 at the time his dad had died, and I really wanted him to like have his tribe as well because
Mm.
kids are dickheads, right? Like it's already happened. A kid at school has already like made fun of him because he's got no dad or whatever. And I don't understand how that feels because I grew up with both my parents. So
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted him to have his tribe as well of kind of like just a bunch of mates that he could go to sort of share the experience with. And there was nothing. So I don't know what my vision was, but I just kind of had this vision that we would like bring some people together and maybe just like have some fun. And
Mm.
then it's just like grown these arms and legs. So we do that. We bring people together, we have fun, we have meetings, days out, all of that stuff. But we also now fund a load of stuff like therapy for these kids and parents who, I'd probably still be on the waiting list if it
Mm.
wasn't for the fact that I had private healthcare at the time. And yeah, it's just grown arms and legs, and we're now supporting like well over 100 families.
Amazing.
Yeah, we have people that come and go, people that need us for a bit and then don't need us and then come back. And it's just been this massive education for me. But it's been quite formative, I think, in my journey of healing.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And I remember talking to you when you first set it up and the enormity of doing it, but you just felt like that you had no other choice because there was nothing there to support
Yeah,
what you and Alfie needed.
yeah, nothing. And it's not good enough. The government don't even know how many kids there are like Alfie. like they don't have a record of how many kids there are that have lost a parent, so therefore, or both parents, and therefore how are they supposed to therefore make any kind of plan for how to support this population of children? So I just felt like I had to do my small bit, and in the grand scheme of things it is a small bit, but it's something.
Yeah, no, and it might be a small bit in the grand scheme, but I'm sure it's a massive bit for the children and the parents that you impact.
I hope so, yeah, I hope so.
So thinking, obviously that's a journey, a bit of your journey that you were never expecting.
Yeah.
If you reflect back to that 18-year-old self, what would she recognise in you today?
I think she would recognize my, I don't know whether the word is determination or somebody who's really stubborn. But I've always been somebody that if I set my sights on something, as long as it is like reasonable and realistic, I will go get it. Like I have always been like that. I will go and get it and I will do it and I will do it to the best of my ability. And that's always been the case throughout my life, whether I think about like exam results or wanting a particular time in the half marathon or this specific job or buying that specific house. I'm really, really disciplined
Mm.
slash stubborn, depending on what word you want to use. It's a blessing and a curse, but that has been that has been me, I think, since birth. My parents would tell you I've always been like, if I want something, I'm going to go get it.
And obviously, I think that probably helped with setting up the charity and getting
Mm.
through, as you still are, as you say, you never really stop grieving, but getting through the grieving as well. If she saw you today, though, what would she be blown away by?
Um, Probably the fact that at this this day that I'm talking to you, I do not have a plan for my life. Like I had this plan, right?
Mm.
That like I would, go to this university, get a a good job, whatever society defines that as, buy a house, sell it, buy a bigger house, get married, have children, God willing, and grow old with my husband and have all these great friends and travel the world and blah 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 and all of that stuff. Now the reality is I don't have a plan at the moment. So I don't have a husband. Spoiler alert. He's very much dead still, and I have not found a new one, and I don't want a new one at the moment.
Mm.
So I'm on my own, and I would say I'm like for the most part happy on my own because I don't believe in finding someone else just to fill a void. It has to be for the right reasons. I've only got one kid, and I plan to have more than one, hopefully. I'm raising him on my own. It's not what either of us planned. And I think in my professional life as well, you don't know this yet, Sam, actually, so this is new information for you, but I'm actually in the process of exiting the organisation I'm working for at the moment because I've kind of just decided I'm fed up of being told what to do all the time. And I kind of just want to work for myself. And that comes, I've always worked for someone else, had a salary, had healthcare, had a pension, all of this stuff. Um, but I've just decided to stick it to the man, and I'm working what feels like the longest notice period of all time. And they've been absolutely brilliant, by the way. I have no complaints. This is not about them. This is about me. But I just need to do my own thing. But I don't have a plan, and my 18-year-old self would be like, "Whoa, what is she doing?" So that's where we are today.
Amazing. So what are you thinking about doing next then for yourself?
Well, I want some more time to grow the charity because at the moment I'm working 4 days a week and Fridays is meant to be sort of like charity day. But the reality is Alfie's at school at 9 and I pick him up at 3 on a Friday. So by the time I've like walked the dog, emptied my dishwasher, changed the beds and paid a few invoices for the charity, like it's time to go and get him again. So I want to cut down my working out. I kind of want to earn less money and have less stress but more time, if that makes
Yeah,
sense. So I'm a
absolutely.
HR professional by trade. So my plan really is to just pick up, kind of some local contracts, some
Yeah.
freelance stuff, some retained stuff, and just give myself a bit more time to, be around for Alfie a bit more. But also grow the charity because I've got this like long backed up list of people that want stuff from us and I just don't have the time to do it at the moment.
Yeah.
So that's the plan, but it's also no plan. So feels like quite choppy waters. But ask me again in a year where I am and what I'm doing.
We'll have to get you back on. We'll see how big it's got.
Yeah,
And for our listeners, we will put a link into the show notes for the Brightest Stars, so
thank
they can go
you.
and have a look at it if they want to. in terms of that journey that you've been through, we all have kind of dips in our career and our lives, and
Mhm.
successes and failures. What's the kind of biggest failure you've experienced, and how did you pick yourself up from it?
I mean, if we're talking task-based failure, I've made the wrong person redundant, which was quite embarrassing. But I think you're talking more kind of thematic.
That sounds like a whole
Um,
story in its own.
yeah, that was really bad. But I made one person's day because like he thought he was out of a job, and then 10 minutes later I was like, "Sorry, wrong mark," and just whipped that bit of paper away from him and went and found the right mark. But I think if we're talking more broadly and more thematically, like probably the job that I'm in right now has been my most difficult experience with rejection or failure. And again, it's not about my employers; it's about me. As I said, I was with a global bank for 12 years, and when this role came around, I think I thought, yeah, that's fine. Like, I've always worked and, I'm fast paced, I'm efficient. And I went for it and it's just not clicked for me. And it's a me problem. It's not a them problem. And I've needed to realize that my life isn't the same. I don't have the time and the resource and all of that stuff that I had when Mike was here, and I need to kind of like not put my career on hold. That's not what I mean, but it I need to repivot and readjust,
Mm.
because what happened was I was spinning all these plates and I became somebody who was doing like, I was an okay employee. I was like an okay mum, an okay friend. Like the
Mm.
charity was okay, the housework was okay, but I wasn't doing a good job of any of it.
Mm.
And I started to drop balls here and there,
Yeah.
missed the library book day at school. I forgot this deadline at work. I didn't pay this invoice for the charity or whatever. And yeah, I just wasn't good enough to do it all. And accepting that was really, really hard. I honestly, I battled with it for months. And also, I don't know if you've had the same, but not having your person to talk
Oh,
it through with
yeah.
is really, really hard. I didn't
Yeah.
feel like I could confide in anyone around me and really sort of bare my soul to be like, do you know what? I just
Yeah.
keep fucking stuff up
Yeah.
and I don't know what to do. I don't think I'm good enough to do all of this. What do I deprioritize here? And it took me ages to reach the right decision, hopefully the right decision. And yeah, here we are. And I know how lucky I am to have the choice to just take
Mm.
some time out. Like I know firsthand that there's tons of people in my club and your club who don't have the money, quite frankly, behind them to
Yeah.
just say, I'm going to pack this in for 6 months and try and do my own thing and then see
Yeah.
where it lands. So
Yeah.
I know how lucky I am to be able to do that. But it's been a really, really difficult
Mm.
experience, to be honest, because
Yeah.
it was the first time I'd sort of properly failed at anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. And one of the next question I'm going to ask you is around kind of the best decision you've made. But I think where you've touched on having that person who's is the person you can trust with everything, and they're not going to think you're stupid when you say stuff, or
Yeah.
even if they will, they won't tell you, and they're always going to have your back. I think
Hmm.
that losing that person is the thing that people who haven't lost a partner probably don't really
Yeah.
understand,
I
because
think
you
so.
you
Yeah,
don't
I think
understand
so.
until you're trying to make a decision and you
Hmm.
realize that
Hmm.
automatic person who would just be there
Hmm.
isn't there. Is probably one of the hardest transitions I found after
So
losing
hard,
somebody.
so hard. I think people from the outside looking in think that losing a partner is like all the obvious things, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like somebody to, share a bed with, make dinner with, go on
Yeah.
holiday with, have
Yeah.
children with, all of that stuff. But I've found comprehending that stuff easier
Mm.
than some of the other stuff,
Yeah.
and making big decisions
Mm.
is, I think, particularly because Mike and I met so young, I'd never really done anything grown up without him, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, there was like loads of bank accounts I didn't even have access to because, like, I
Mm.
knew they existed, for example, but that was something I didn't even know what day the bloody bins went out. Like, there
Yeah.
was
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
all this
Because you
stuff that
divide
I
and conquer, right, when you're in a partnership.
absolutely, and don't get me wrong, if it had been me that went, there would have been a ton of stuff he wouldn't have known how to do, turning on the washing machine being one of them. But and probably knowing when our son's birthday is and what school he goes to being another. But yeah, it's making big decisions, and when they come off, having no one to celebrate with is really hollow. There's been a few big decisions I've made, and they've come off, and you just want somebody to high five you and be
Yeah,
like, "Didn't we do a great job?"
yeah,
And like it's really hollow. But equally, when they don't come off, having no one to sort of commiserate with and be like, "Well, do
yeah,
you know what? We went into this together, and we'll come through it together." Like that's really hard as well.
yeah. No, I think you're right. I think it's that person who's just there.
Yeah, the constant.
Um, yeah, yeah. No, I would agree with you. I think that's definitely the hardest. So, in terms of decision making, what's the best decision you've ever made?
Do you know what? I try never to pat myself on the back too much for decisions because I do think a lot of what we decide to do is half chance, isn't it? And
Yeah,
I also think a lot of it is like sliding doors moments as well. So if I hadn't got on that train at that time, I wouldn't have met that person who would have then given me this opportunity or whatever, like whatever it might be. But if I had to choose one, it's really cliche. I think choosing to have Alfie with Mike was like the best decision I could have made because I knew we wanted children, but at the time that we had him, or conceived him, if that's not too much detail. Like we were quite newly married and we could have hung on for another couple of years probably
yeah,
before we made that decision. So I feel so lucky, to be honest, that we had him before
mm,
Mike was taken away from me, us, society. But I just, I never ever thought I'd be raising this kid on my own.
yeah,
But to and I hope this isn't a sensitive subject for you because I know you don't have children, but to have this massive bit of
mm,
Mike
yeah,
that is left and this legacy has been such a comfort, like not just for me, but I think for so many others
yeah,
as well.
oh yeah,
Like
yeah,
like for Mike's family, for example, to have this
yeah.
little thing that looks exactly like him and
That's it.
behaves exactly
Yeah,
like him. It's and Alfie will one day when he's old enough, he will understand that he quite literally saved my life.
mm,
I don't know what I'd be doing now if I didn't
yeah,
have him because having someone to get up for every day when it's
yeah,
really bleak and dark and
yeah,
difficult and he was only 4. He was sad, don't get me wrong, but he didn't really understand. So it was
no,
kind of like, he still wanted dippy eggs for breakfast. He still wanted to go to James's birthday party. He still wanted to go and watch the Newcastle game, whatever it might be. And actually having that anchor to just be like, the show must go on, has been so important. And
yeah,
I think I'm actually a better parent for doing it on my own, if that makes
mm,
sense.
yeah, yeah. And don't laugh, but I feel like that about my oldest dog.
Oh, mate,
Um,
I love the dogs. You know I love the dogs.
but yeah, I mean, she was very much my husband's dog, not mine.
Yeah,
And she sat at the front door for 3 weeks after he died.
that's what I mean.
And but having her to be responsible for
She needed a walk,
gave
right?
you
She
a,
needed
gave
feeding.
gave me purpose. And she's an
Yeah,
old lady now, and when we lose her, that will be devastating because we'll lose her, but also because she's that connection.
yeah,
Was his baby, definitely his baby. Um,
yeah.
no,
It's
I get it. And having something that gets you out of bed, I think you
totally.
have no choice. It is reliant on you 100%.
Totally. Although
Um,
I said I don't look for silver linings, but one of the best things to come out of Mike's death is I've got my sausage dog called Wilmer, who the irony is he would not be seen dead walking that dog, and he is dead. So I really wanted a dog, and he was quite sensitive about the whole thing, to be fair. He was like, look, we're in and out of London. We don't know what the return to work post COVID looks like, blah, 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 all of that. So he was totally right. But once the dust had settled, I went out and got that sausage dog, and she is life. I just love
yeah,
her so much.
yeah.
And like, you might resonate with this. Like, sometimes I don't talk to another grown up in real life
No,
for like days at a time because I like literally throw Alfie at school, run home, do a day's work or whatever. But getting a dog, I've got these dog walking friends. I don't even know their names. I just know their dogs'
dog.
names. But I talk to them
Yeah,
every day.
yeah, yeah. And the dog. I talk to the dog. I have
Oh
very good
yeah,
conversations with the dog. She is now my person. She's the one
yeah,
I tell all my troubles to.
yeah. She knows your deepest, darkest secrets.
Exactly, yeah. So
Yeah.
glad she doesn't speak English. No. Um, so yeah, so in terms of thinking about advice as well, I'm sure lots of people gave me advice through my entire life, but definitely when Chris died. And I'm sure you've given and been given a lot of advice
Yeah.
over the years. What's the best piece of advice you've been given that you ignored, other than buying a
Um,
dog?
Actually, yeah, other than yeah, getting the dog. So the best piece of advice that I've been given that I've not always ignored, but I have to work really hard to check myself to make sure that I'm not ignoring is about being critical of other people. I think it's so easy to judge people, isn't it? Like whether whether it's like their careers or the fact that like they send their kids to school in like threadbare uniform, but then you see them smoking a packet of fags that, cost 12 quid or, whatever the case may be. And I remember a really good friend of mine said to me, whenever you feel like criticizing anyone, just remember that not everyone in this world has had the privilege and the advantages that you have
Mm,
had. And she was so right. It's
yeah,
so easy to judge people. I think we're all guilty of it, but
yeah,
I try really hard to like take a breath and remember that I come from a place of huge privilege. I've always had food on the table. I had people around me that taught me right from wrong, how to make good decisions,
mm,
what's healthy, what isn't. Um, who the hell am I to judge people who have not had that sort of privilege?
yeah,
My job is not to judge them. My job is to help them.
yeah,
So yeah, that's the best piece of advice I've been given, and I try really hard to take it, but I know I don't always. So
yeah. I think human nature sometimes is we jump to judgment and we
yeah,
have to reel ourselves back from it.
totally,
Yeah,
totally.
absolutely. This is a new question that I'm asking of my
Yeah,
guests around kind of what the listeners can do. I've started giving them homework, which is quite good fun. We'll see as the episodes come out whether or not my listeners appreciate being given homework.
yeah.
But um, if you could set our listeners one challenge,
hmm
what would it be?
Um, I think it probably comes back to what we just spoke about around like the biggest failures. And I think it would be to ask them, what is it in your life at the moment, if there is anything, that's making you unhappy or doubting yourself or whatever it
Mm,
is? Like, is there something in your life that, like, more days than not is making you worried, anxious, unhappy, depressed, like whatever it is?
mm,
And what are your options around changing that? Because I know like I said, I know how lucky I am to have had the option to change that, but I just wish I'd faced up to the reality sooner,
mm,
which was that it wasn't working. It was impacting other parts of my life.
mm,
And I know I had the option to just walk away from it, but if I didn't have that option, I would have had to find another way to change or make it work or repivot or whatever it is. So I think a really good challenge for the listeners is to like have a really hard, difficult conversation with yourself around, is there anything that's actually making you really unhappy at the moment, and what are your options around how you can try and make that better or do something differently.
yeah, it's a great challenge. It's a great challenge, and I think you're right. I think, especially as we transition, at our age, as we're going through our 30s and 40s, I think it's very easy to get stuck in a thing because you started it in your 20s,
Yeah.
and because that was the path, and to pivot
hmm
away is really scary.
So scary. Like, I cannot tell you how worried I am about the next 12 months of my life. I can't tell you how scared I am, but I think listen, it's either going to go really well or it's going to go okay, or I'm going to fall flat on my face. But I've always got other options.
Yeah,
And taking the chance for me is so much better than just sitting
yeah,
in a role that I wasn't as I say, it wasn't them, it's me. It just wasn't working out,
yeah,
and I needed to do something different for my own sanity.
yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. I think pivoting is scary, but of everybody, my friends, the people I've interviewed, no one who has pivoted has ever regretted it.
Well,
Even
that's
if it
good.
doesn't, even if it doesn't bring them the thing they thought they wanted, it brings them
Mm.
the thing they need.
Yeah, or it might bring me something else I didn't even know
Yeah,
I wanted or needed.
yeah,
I
yeah,
just
exactly.
don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, so yeah.
Amazing. So we're at our last question, Helen.
Okay.
And obviously it's called The Beginner's Guide to Being a Grown-Up. So if that appreciating, neither of us actually think we're grown-ups, but we'll put that aside. If that guide actually existed, what's
Yeah.
the one piece of advice you would put into the guide?
Don't get fucking smug with your own life. Because it will bite you in the arse in the biggest possible way. Um, yeah, I think just don't count your chickens, count your blessings. Because I think I reached a point in life where I thought I'd worked it all out, and I now know 3 years on that there was so many amazing things in my life that I just wasn't appreciating, and I really enjoy them now. And and bad things happen, and a lot of this stuff is outside of your control. I don't believe you can control many things, but I do think you can, to an extent, control your reaction to them.
Yeah.
So just don't get smug with your life, and when the unexpected comes along, just be gracious, be humble, and the universe will sort the rest out.
Brilliant. I'm not sure I can follow that, Helen. So I think that's that was fantastic. So I think that's the perfect place for us to finish. Helen, thank you so much for today. I've really enjoyed talking to you, learning more about your story, and your new journey. And maybe we'll get you back in a year or so to tell us what you've learned since.
I'll probably have
taking
learned all about job seekers allowance and been evicted from a house, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you for listening to this episode of A Beginner's Guide to Being a Grown-Up. If you enjoyed it, please like, follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If there's someone who inspires you that you'd like me to interview, you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram and TikTok. In the meantime, enjoy being a grown-up.